Hello and welcome back to the Sell Like You podcast with me, Harriet Meller. And today I have a friend, fellow Northerner from England joining me. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you very much, fellow friend.
Fellow friend. We were just hanging out drinking wine only a few weeks ago.
We were. In fact, you were sat just there next to where I'm
just
sat right now.
Superimpose me. In we go.
I know. That's right. I just need the wine. It's a little bit early. I'm on the coffee.
Yeah.
It's 8 o'clock UK time. So I'm having a very strong coffee to get the day off.
Otherwise, it definitely would be wine knowing you,
Absolutely,
Melissa.
100%.
Awesome. So, Melissa Hull, Head of Sales Enablement at Apprentify. What's Apprentify?
Okay. So Apprentify, we are a very exciting business here in the UK, and we are going from strength to strength and on a huge growth trajectory at the moment. So it's a great time to be part of Apprentify. So as head of sales enablement, I sit across group, and what that means is that I help drive and motivate the sales teams, but also I help to onboard people into the organisation, and I run the academies that bring our new starters in and upskill them and get them ready to hit the sales floor. And I also run internal training programs across groups. Just to give you a flavour of the group and what we do, there are various businesses that fall under Apprentify Group, and one of them is Apprentify Limited, where we focus on delivering apprenticeships into various industries and vertical markets, but across technical, digital, marketing and sales. That's a big part of what we do. We also have another business, which is based in Birmingham, called Netcom, which delivers government-funded training in the technical space as well. And that's a great business that's growing from strength to strength. Also, we've also got a new exciting business that we brought in last year called IODA. And IODA offer management, leadership, coaching, EDI training in apprenticeships, government-funded and also commercial across organisations across the UK and beyond. So they are an international business. We've also recently, very excited about this one, set up Flourish. So we brought in Sarah Skelton, aka Skelly, and she's come in as the MD and set up Flourish, which is an early careers assessment, placement and training organisation. So what that means is that we bring up people into sales roles at quite junior level. We assess them for placement businesses, give them a really brilliant training program, a boot camp with lots of coaching sessions throughout their first year to ensure their success and their retention. And that's a really exciting business that's been set up in October and is again flying. So I'm really excited to see what happens with that side of the business this year. And we've recently also brought in somebody else called Matt Haig, who's now the MD of our commercial training arm of our business. So aside apprentice that will focus on commercial training to upskill salespeople and also managers and leaders. So really exciting. Lots of different areas of the business. We're growing, we're acquiring. It's a really exciting time to be head of sales enablement of a company like that. What I love about my role is not only do I sit across groups, I've got the varied elements of the different companies that I sit across, but also a huge motivator for me is to onboard people, but also to develop and grow them. And I love seeing people that have come through my academies who years later are top sellers, sales managers, sales leaders, which happens often. And that's a massive motivator for me. So great role, great company. So yeah, really excited.
And I mean, you've been in this role, in this world for a very long time. And obviously that's how you and I met many, many moons ago. And back then I always remember asking you, how did you get into that sales trainer role, enablement role? And I remember you telling me about, you came in through a graduate recruitment scheme or some form of training scheme, and you just absolutely nailed it. And you just worked extremely hard and you got some great results. And then automatically, or I guess really, the team wanted you then back or wanted you to get you involved to help other people. And that for me has always been your viewpoint, has been I want to help people, I want to get them moving through, almost like that teacher level where you want students to come back to you and be like, thanks miss, you changed my life. I feel like that's the vibe that that you would definitely be getting after all these years of doing this.
Look, when I started many moons ago, I came in as a sort of naive junior salesperson that didn't really understand sales. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I think I'd thrown my CV onto a database, and what was then Pareto Law contacted me, and I came forward for an assessment day. Ended up working there without really fully understanding what sales was. And the role, as it always generally is in sales, was to hit the phone. And it was hard. And I remember shedding tears on my first week thinking, oh, what am I doing? I can't do this, massive imposter syndrome. But with training and development, and there were some trainers that really stood out for me that I still remember to this day, more so than teachers at school, actually. Really brilliant, motivating sales trainers have stuck with me for decades since the courses I was on. And they really showed me the way and showed me that I was capable, and gave me the skills and gave me the structure to then come back into the sales floor and be a success. And actually, as I started to see success in sales and grow my own teams, I enjoy developing people. And it's not for everybody, and that's okay. Sometimes salespeople don't want to manage. They just want to be selfish, have a big number and hit it and get all the money and go home. And that's fine. And actually, you need a mix of people in your business that want to manage and those that don't. But I did. And I actually really found that I was very motivated by developing teams across our offices across the UK. And then what happened was the founding directors at Pareto said, hey, look, you're helping to develop people across all of the offices that we've got across the UK. They're doing well. You're making an impact. What about becoming a sales trainer? I was about 27 at the time, and I was still doing really well in sales. And I thought, you know what, actually, I'm going to give it a go. So I did a hybrid role. So I still got to sell and do all the fun stuff. But then I was also learning how to be a sales trainer at the same time. So I upskilled in all of the content that we delivered and trained that externally and then also internally, and found actually I got a real buzz from running a really, really hot program. And then at the end of it, getting great feedback, and then people going back into their offices and their companies and doing really, really well. And then messaging me going, hey, that technique that you gave me about questioning, well, I've just found an amazing opportunity in one of our clients that I would never have found unless I'd asked that question. So thank you. Or, hey, that technique that you gave me to close for a meeting on the phone, I used it. And guess what? I've made 6 more meetings over this month because of it. And it's like, that makes me so motivated and happy. Just as big a buzz as actually getting a deal over the line. And you know how good a buzz that is, Harriet, to get a deal over the line. That is we hit your quarter, hit your year, hit your month. Amazing adrenaline rush. But I also get that from a training course as well that I've delivered that's had impact and had great outcomes. And I think that for me was a big turn in my career at the end of my 20s and going into my 30s, which was like, which direction do I want to go? Do I want to continue on the sales route, or do I actually want to become a trainer and a coach and a mentor? And I thought, I think I'm heading towards that. Now, what also happened at that point is I had 3 kids, right? So to have a number and to have children and have a family is tough. It is hard to because when I don't know about other people, I know lots of successful people think this way, but when you're a good salesperson, you're obsessed with your number. You live and breathe it every day, every minute, every hour. When you've got children, it's challenging to do that because your little kids are taking up a lot of your headspace. It comes with a lot of stress, so does sales. So actually lots of really, really good salespeople at that stage, women particularly, take a step back. And I thought, hang on a minute, I don't want to take a step back from my career because I enjoy working. I think it's good for me mentally to have a mix in my life. So going into a sales training role meant that I could have my family and also continue my career. And the model of sales training is actually that you can either be employed or you can be self-employed. And if you're self-employed, you can dip in and out. You can choose your days. It's very flexible. You can turn work down. You can say, hey, I can do 4 days this month. Or, hey, I've got more gaps. I can do 10. Or, hey, you know what, this month, kids got loads going on. We're going to go on holiday. Don't want any work. So that was really good for me for a number of years. So not only was I getting my dopamine hit from training people and developing people, what I was also able to do was to also manage my family at the same time. And that was very important to me.
Yeah. And I think, all credit to you as well, Melissa, because your kids are incredible. And, I can't wait to have James.
I wasn't saying that this morning, but
Yeah, maybe not this morning before school drop off, but definitely. I mean, we joke about James coming to Australia. He's coming. He's going to come and work for us. So I can't wait to have him on the phones already. That questioning technique he has, insane, and it's all from you. So I think definitely all credit to you, because you do have an opportunity, and it's not. There's no right. There's no wrong, and it's just down to what you feel. And I think you've always been such a driven, you know what you're going after and how you can do it, but you're also incredibly good at what you do. And I think there would have been a massive gap for those people coming through if you were there doing it. And I think, it's been great to have you during that period. And I knew you when you had one child and all the way through to having three. It was incredible to watch. And then now to see you as you've evolved in your career again. And how important do you think it is? You mentioned there about sales trainers and sales managers, and then obviously great salespeople not always being sales managers. How important do you think the coaching element is to have that skill set as a manager? And what do you think happens if they don't have it? Is that okay? Like what are your thoughts there?
No, it's absolutely imperative. And this is the problem, because it just lots of businesses, and I've worked across businesses where this model has happened. You've got somebody that's successful in sales and they've smashed their targets year on year. And then what happens is the only progression forward is that they become a manager and they grow a team. And often the best salespeople make the worst managers, because the traits that make you a successful seller can often not lend themselves to management. And actually, I think one of the biggest and toughest sort of transitions as a salesperson is to becoming a manager. Because instead of having just your number to look after and your client base, suddenly you've got 4, 5, 6 people, however big your team is, obviously. You're carrying their number, you're helping them with their deals. And what happens is that you become quite time poor, because your team lean on you and ask you lots of questions. You could be writing an email or getting ready, preparing for a meeting, and all of a sudden somebody's asking you questions on how to write their email or how to prepare for their meeting. And it throws you off. And it's quite frustrating, actually. And unless you're somebody that really genuinely is motivated by developing others and coaching them and being there for them and mentoring them, it's a very, very challenging transition. And I've seen lots of really good salespeople fail at management because of that. And that's okay. It's okay not to want to manage. But if you are going to be a manager of salespeople, coaching is absolutely vital. And for me, coaching is not just unlocking their potential, but it's actually spending time with them. So as head of Sales Enablement, I'm pulled in many, many different directions. But I had the luxury yesterday of being able to run a call-out day, which was a cold calling day, effectively, which is a bit old school to call it that. A prospecting day, shall we call it? I call it a call-out day.
They call them here.
What do you call them?
Blitz day.
Blitz day. Wow, I'm going to nick that. I love that. Is that like copyright?
No, take it.
Blitz day. Wow, that's brilliant. I love that. So we call them a call out day, which is not as sexy as that. But anyway, so that is where I get all my sales team to hit the phones. No excuses, no emails, no admin, no meetings, hopefully. You just get on the phones. It's just one day a month where we just hammer it. And, I ask them to do lots of preparation, get their leads qualified, make sure they've got the right people to speak to, right phone numbers, and we just hammer it and we have a bit of fun with it. We do themes. We didn't do a theme yesterday, but often we do themes. The next one's going to be Valentine's Day. But for me, what was brilliant yesterday was that I was able to walk around the sales floor and coach. And coaching is a really important part of people's development. You can train people in a training room every day of the year, but unless you coach them and embed it afterwards, it won't work. It won't stick. So coaching's really important. So if I can hear somebody on the phone and I can hear them maybe asking a closed question, or maybe they pitch something and they miss something out, or, I don't know, the decision maker says something and they don't question around it or ask it, they just move on because they've not listened properly or they've just not understood it. I can coach that. And what's fantastic with coaching, especially in a sales enablement position, is to have the ability to listen to calls, listening into them live, but also listening back to them and playing them back, to deconstruct them and to look at what they could have done differently. Just going back to your piece on coaching, I mean, coaching by definition is to unlock somebody's potential. So it's to make sure that you're asking them questions to get them to think of the answers and actually for them to come up with the solution, and you coach them through that. Again, that is time consuming. And as a manager, it's easy to fall into the trap of just answering the question. So somebody says to you, hey, look, a decision maker's just said this to me. They're pushing back on this deal because of X, Y, Z. What should I do? What you should really do in that instance as a good manager and coach is to say, well, let's have a look at the options. What's the problem? What do you need what do you need the outcome to be? What are your 3 options or whatever, however many options you've got? Talk me through them and let's assess which one's the most viable. What are the risks? What are the opportunities? And you get them to think about it and they go, I'm going to do that. And this is the reason. And then they don't need to come back to you again because that's a lot. What can often happen with a manager is that they'll just give the answer because it's quick. So if you're in the middle of an email or you're about to jump on a call and somebody asks you a question, are you always going to have time to go, well, Johnny, what do you think we should do here? What are your options? You don't always have that opportunity. You kind of go, just say this to them, but then you're straight back on. But what happens is that then they'll just keep going back to the well. You know, they're always going to come back to the well. So you've got to get them to be thinking about it themselves. And again, that's time consuming. And if you have a number to hit and you are up against it, which you are as a sales manager, that can be a challenge. So I think one of the initiatives that I've got when I train in leadership and management is, you know, how can you coach while also doing your day job, right? Because that's the problem, isn't it? There's not enough hours in the day. So yeah, coaching is really important.
Yeah, and I like that response or that discussion point around the fact that you need to ask that question back. And like you said, often if the sales manager's got a number, then they're like, well, I need to hit my number and I need you to hit yours. So just here's the answer and let's go. And what I find when I'm doing enablement and coaching and training on behalf of other organizations or having access to their teams, often after the sessions, I mean, as part of everything we do, we always do follow-up. We don't do something without a follow-up. And often people say, can you run an hour training? That's all we need. No, because it won't do anything for you. They'll get excited, they'll walk away, and then they'll do nothing with it. And so I find that I've got a couple of questions to go back to on some of my clients' team at the moment, which is, what would I write for this? Or can you help with this? Absolutely. Share with me what you think first. Because then you know what they've thought of. And we're doing this. I mean, I've got, this is all very fresh because we've got a new lead development team expanding at the moment. So I'm doing a lot of training and I'm effectively now a sales manager within my own team again, whilst also running training, whilst also running a business. And I don't have the time. I don't have lots of time to sit down and be like, so tell me, what do you think we should do? But I have to make that time because otherwise they're never going to learn. They are a representation of me because I've trained them and they're part of a sales enablement development organization. So they have to, we have to get through there. And so for me, we're doing a lot of, like mini tasks or, if I give you this scenario, write an email based on what you've learned and based on this scenario, write an outbound email. And then straight away I can see what have they taken in, what haven't they? And then I can give them feedback. So I'm preempting the questions around what shall I do with this or what shall I say here? Because we've got it already kind of, I think you're going to send an email and it might not be great. And I'd rather look at it now rather than in, 2 weeks' time when you're actually doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
And so we're talking about training, there's enablement, there's lots of pieces there to unpick. And obviously there's lots of different angles within the organization you're in terms of how you approach it. But if we look at then that element of that coaching of asking the question, what have you seen based on your training, however many years ago when you started to today and training the latest cohorts coming through? What do you think has changed throughout our generations, good and bad, in relation to being successful at sales?
In terms of the people, would you say? Yeah. Okay. I've seen a lot of change and then I've seen some golden threads that have stayed the same. So in terms of, if I address, first of all, the things that I've seen that are different. So when I first started out, which was 21 years ago, 21? Yeah, 21 years ago. Showing my age.
I wasn't going to give it away.
Oh man, so depressing, isn't it? So yeah, it was very different and it was hardcore. It was like mental health, what's that? Don't care, that's weak, get out. You're having a bad day, don't care, get on with it. It was like, make this many calls, go on, just get on the phone, no messing. It was relentless, and it was hardcore, and it was unforgiving. Now, actually, I thrived in that environment, but many, many brilliant people probably didn't. And it was, it pushed them out. And what I would say now is, while it's still, you've got to be driven, you've got to do the activity, you've got to understand that it's going to be repetitive, you've got to understand that there's no such thing as a bad day, you've got to turn up and crack on. And if you're not feeling very motivated, switch to your discipline. If you're going to go into discipline mode, if you're not motivated that day, you can't, every day that you have that you're not being effective is going to hit your number and your target. So it's still got that. But what I would say is that the Gen Zers are much more in touch with their feelings, in touch with their mental health and well-being. And therefore, as a trainer and manager and coach and leader, you've got to understand that. And there has to be concessions for it. And I'm not saying that you let people off and you reduce targets and you don't push them as hard, but you push them in a different way. And the way people want to be motivated now is different. In terms of the incentive trip, we've just launched a holiday incentive, which will be in September. So it's a sort of cross-sell incentive across the business. It's really exciting, actually. We launched it yesterday. I'm really looking forward to driving that. But one of the things that our leader said on that call, which I thought, wow, that's interesting, is he said, look, this can be a boozy holiday if you want it to be, or it can be a wellness holiday. And I noticed in chat, one of the sales team said, can I bring my mountain bike? Now, when we would go on like a Mallorca trip back in the day, it was just, I can't even remember getting off the plane sometimes on the way out, because we had miniature bottles rolling around all the trays and stuff. They were really boozy. And I feel like this day and age, yes, of course, people still want to go out and have a good time. There's absolutely that still there. And salespeople by nature are extroverts and social. However, there's also this kind of wellness element now. And as a business, you've got to adapt. And there's certainly in the training room as well, some of the things that were said in the training room 20 years ago, you wouldn't get away with now. I remember one trainer writing an obscene word up on the wall, on the board, which I won't mention on this podcast at 8:38 in the morning. But let's just say it's a sort of unsavory word that many people recoil at. And he wrote it on the board in the training room and turned to the delegates and said, what do you think of that? And one woman got up and left, but the rest of them stayed. And the purpose of it, I think what he was trying to do was he was trying to stop to say, what might offend you might not offend you. And what do we need to think about with our clients and how we react? So I can see where he was going. He did there was a learn somewhere in there, but that method now, you just couldn't do. He did get complaints, actually, and this was 20 years ago. So you imagine how it would go down in this day and age, but you've just got to be careful. And I also think that your client base as well, I think clients have changed. Again, you've got clients that are coming through of just different generation. And the clients that maybe I sold to back in the day have maybe retired now. And we've got this sort of new generation of clients coming through. And again, the approach has got to be different. It's much more consultative. It's not as hardcore. And sometimes, there is absolutely still a place for that. And you've got to be, you have got to be very, very driven in sales. There's no getting away from that. You've got to want to win. But it's just the kind of the trend now of people wanting to understand about wellness and support. And, my sales team now want to go to the gym in the evening. They don't want to be working till 7, 8 o'clock at night like we used to back in the day. They want to go and get some evening sunlight and walk the dog and get out and have some fresh air after being at the tables all day or in the office all day. So, you've got to move with the times. And I have seen that that's been a huge shift with the delegates that I'm training and the academies that I'm running, because if you think a majority of the people that I'm training in this role, in terms of the onboarding, they're fresh out of uni. Sometimes they're not even graduates, but they're early careers people. And they're very, very different. They're talking about going to the gym after work and they're eating. I see them with their like Tupperwares of like fruit and salad. One of the guys on my team, you can set a watch by when he has his banana and his protein shake and his overnight oats. And they're all meal prepping. None of that back in my day. You were down at the supermarket grabbing a horrible sort of sandwich and crisps and stuff like that. It has changed massively. And as businesses and trainers and developers and managers, we've got to move with the times.
Yeah. And I think it's such a topic, it's a hot topic. It's something that, as we now will see the sales leaders, and this is probably the challenge that we're facing, as an industry, is that, those now the leaders and the people coming through have seen how they did it, how they came up. And it's almost like, we did it hard, you have to do it hard.
Yeah.
And, and we're going to have the same expectations. And as you said, it's not about generating less results. It's not about being softer. But it's about understanding there's a balance.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I always ask teams is, what motivates you? Do you want a monetary incentive? Do you want to go home early? Do you want a voucher? Do you want, what is it that's going to get you engaged and excited? And so often we'll trial lots of mini incentives. We'll switch it up. But some people don't want to go away without their families. So that's not going to be an incentive to them. Whereas instead, a voucher to go and take their kids to some concert might be the thing that gets them there. And fundamentally, at the bottom of everything is money. At the bottom of everything we're doing is, well, we need money to fund that. We need money to fund that. But sometimes the offer of money is not the thing that gets them up.
That's right. Yeah.
And I remember, and it's still to this day, I still believe it, is that I can put $10 up on a board and people will go wild for that $10, because it's not just the $10 or the £10 or the £20. It's the fact that they get to win. And that's the trait.
Yeah.
I always think we're still striving for. We're still looking for that competitive edge. We're still looking for the ones that want to be better than somebody else. And when I see that, that gets me excited when I'm training and I'm seeing that they're in their own lane, but they're like, what? I don't want you to catch up, and I'm trying to be better. And I've just heard you say that, and that got you a meeting. So now I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
It's that thirst for success, whether it's on your own or as a team or against somebody. I think that's the stuff we're still seeing, regardless of the generation change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. And actually, the thing about the money as well, I think when you're starting out, and I think back to when I first got my first sales job before I started seeing the big commission checks, you are living hand to mouth sometimes. You're in rented accommodation, or you're still living at your parents', you've got a rundown car, you're living for your weekends, and 10 quid actually stuck up on a board is actually great, because it's, hey, it's money in the pocket that you wouldn't have had before. So yeah, absolutely, money is still a key motivator. And even if you're into wellness and all of that kind of thing, again, all that costs money. Gym memberships cost money, your protein shakes cost money, your wellness retreats cost money, your gym gear costs money, your running shoes cost money. So, it does absolutely, money is at the front of all of it. Yeah.
And, we've talked when you and I caught up, but also I've seen a shift on your LinkedIn posting and content around women in the industry. And I think it's we're two females in the industry. I think, we have to touch on this topic.
Yeah.
You did a post around wanting to see more women and the fact that you weren't seeing as many women. Is that changed? Do you think that was the same when you were going through? Were there more women than what you're seeing now? Like, do you think that's a shift, or do you think it's always been the way?
I think it's always been the way. But that's a really interesting point. There were some really brilliant females that I worked with back in the day. I'm just seeing less of them, and I don't know why. And I don't know whether it's always been a trend, or whether it's just because of recently I've been doing a lot more recruitment, so I'm kind of more aware of it. But some of the best salespeople I know are female. And there are statistics to actually back this up, that more women hit targets than men and have success. That's not to diminish men here. This is not a man-bashing session here at all, because most, there are some hugely inspirational males in my world that I look up to and aspire to be, and all of the rest of it. So it's not a man-bashing post, but I really would like to see some more female talent coming through. And it's out there. I just feel that it's not, that at grassroots level, so your schools, your colleges, your sixth forms, your universities, I don't think sales as a career is advocated enough, and it never has been, right? There isn't a degree in sales. There's a degree in marketing, there's a degree in business, economics, human resources, you name it, but there isn't a specific degree in sales. There are apprenticeships in sales, which are fantastic, of which we offer two, the ITSA, IT Technical Sales Apprenticeship, and the Sales Exec, Level 3 and Level 4. brilliant apprenticeship, but there's not an actual physical degree. And as far as I know, you can't take an A-level in sales, right? But yet sales has been an enabler for hundreds of women that I know who are at C-level and, very high level individuals. And it needs to change, because on my sales team now, I think I've got 1, 2, 3 females out of, 30 people. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's,
That's a
the
massive
last,
difference.
yeah, it is a massive difference. It is a massive difference. And the female salespeople that I've got are brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant. I've got some brilliant guys as well, but they are without doubt great. And I really, really want to change it. And so for me, a big initiative this year is to get out there, go to schools, go to colleges, go to sixth forms and educate and talk to all of the pupils, but specifically the females, to show them that there's a career out there that is going to be exciting, lucrative, enabling, varied, social, hugely rewarding, and you might not know about it. So let me talk to you about it. Come and have a look at what we do and have some taster sessions and see what you think. And it's not just to recruit for me, but this is also for our client partners, because lots of our clients are saying to us, can we have a couple of females? I know you don't say that, but can we have a couple of speakers? Like, yeah, we will do if we can get hold of any. And actually, that's the challenge. It's how do we attract females to our discovery days or to our assessment days? And how do we educate them about this incredible career? What's the situation like over in Australia with females to males?
I would say the industry is very industry dependent. So when I first came to Australia, I mean, I'm in Perth, which is on the west coast, and we are not as populated as Sydney and Melbourne. But when I came here, I knew somebody, I got a job, and I transitioned quite quickly from selling in the UK and tech into Australia. But I just started at zero. I started at zero from a perspective of pipeline connections, emails, phone numbers. I had a phone number, nobody knew who I was. And, you just get going. And from that, I used to get a lot of outreach from companies that were like, we'd love to chat to you about coming to join us. The one thing I think how they could have done it better, I should probably say, is that they could have approached me with regards to what skill set I had. Whereas a lot of them were like, we need more women. And I was like, cool, I'm better than the guys. So why do you want me? Because I had a real bee in my bonnet. I still do. If somebody puts me in a bucket of women, as in, leader in women or this in women, I'm like, no, give us everything. Give us it all. Like, that for me, I find quite frustrating as a strong performer in tech sales. I was like, don't put me in a bucket with women. Put me in the bucket with everybody. And so I stayed for a while with an organization. I ended up getting headhunted, and I was the first female they recruited within the business. And I went through, I think, 7 interviews, and it was to make sure I was the right fit. It was to make sure I wasn't going to rattle their male team, which weren't in sales. I mean, there was only 1 or 2 people in sales, but it was more so the tech team. Was I going to be sensitive? Was I going to be okay if they swore? Was I, and again, in Australian culture, I mean, all the radio swears here. It's so unusual to come home and listen to the BBC and all the words be beeped out. So we do have a very different culture in the whole of Australia. It's a little bit more laid back. But I think for me personally, my team now, it's all women bar one. So we have Owen, and I'm like, Owen and his girls, and that's that's the vibe. Now I think that they think that's come because I've built a very strong personal brand on LinkedIn, and I'm a female founder leader in this industry. So people look and go, well, if she can do it, maybe I could do it, or maybe she could teach me. So I think that happens. And then we have the podcast. So we have, we do the Women in Tech Sales series. We get a lot of women on the podcast in sales or talking about, successes around business. And we really advocate in that space. But as you said, I've been taught solely by men. My whole life, growing up, building my career, I only worked for men. I remember the odd female coming in and out. You massively inspired me when we got to work together and when we were recruiting. But there's very few females in my life that have showed me this is how you do it and this is how successful you can be. And so I think the pathway doesn't seem so simple, I think, when starting out. And I think for women, I say, actually, I won't say for women, I'll say for me, when I started, is that I was like, can I talk about money? Can I talk about being successful? Can I be like, oh, I beat her, I beat him, I did this, I nailed it. That doesn't align with the way that I was. And so you've got to find your own path. And I think often, I find it a challenge to get great salespeople in, full stop, male or female, because there can be that, that connotation in the industry around, it's sleazy, it's this.
Yeah.
But I've just had Georgia join. She only joined last week. No sales background, no tech background. She's been in customer service roles. Her dad actually found the advert on LinkedIn and sent it to her. And we had a chat, and, I talked to her about sales, and she said, my uncle's told me I need to get into sales, and she's 26. And she said, I need to get into sales because if you can learn to sell, you can do anything. And that filled me with joy, because I believe that wholeheartedly. If you learn to sell, you can do anything, because you can sell yourself, you can sell a product or service, you can sell a business, you can sell anything.
Yeah.
And she gave me feedback just this afternoon before I came home for this. And I said to her, like, what have you learned? And she said, I've just learned that, that selling isn't just about, do you want this thing? It's about selling something that people can't get elsewhere. And you're selling based on, the outcome and the benefit that they haven't experienced elsewhere. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, like, that's my experience. That's been my journey. But I've been very fortunate in now having a lot of women, and now I'm probably like, we have some more men.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Level it out a bit.
Well, if any of your women want to move over to the UK and move to Manchester, you know where we are. I also think another point as well, is that I see so many females that give up their careers to have children, which is great. And I have full respect for that, because it's not easy being a stay-at-home mum. I tried it. I wasn't very good at it. And I just found that I was frustrated and a bit, I just wasn't as fulfilled as I could be. And I took that out on the family. And I found that I was a better mum for having some work in my life. And the levels of work that I needed in my life at that time has fluctuated. So when I had little children, I didn't want as much. And then when the kids got a bit older, I'd want a bit more. Then I'd have another baby, and my capacity would go down again. And then, as they're sort of growing up, it's growing again. Maybe as they get towards their GCSEs, it might change again, because I might need to be around a little bit more to help with revision. So my work appetite has fluctuated, but my drive has stayed the same. That's never wavered. Now, what I do find is that there is a lot of really brilliant, talented, incredible women who have had children, who are struggling or who are hesitant to come back into the workplace because they're worried that they're stale, they're rusty, they've forgotten it all, the systems will have moved on, the language and the markets will have moved on, they'll have got left behind, and they've lost their confidence. And even after my maternity leave, to come back after, 9 to 12 months, you come back in and you are nervous, you are rusty. It doesn't take long to get back up to speed, but it's scary. Now, if you times that out by if you say you took a decade out being a mum, to come back after 10 years, when you've been somebody that was successful before, is very, very challenging. And another initiative for me is not just about grassroots females, but it's also about females that have been on maternity leave, that have been stay-at-home mums, that have given up their careers, and how to then integrate them back into the workplace and back into a sales role, whether that would be part-time initially, get them, feeling like they can do it maybe 1-2 days a week, dip their toe in the water, upping it sort of gradually to get their confidence levels up and their capability and their skill back to where it was, and obviously upskill on the new changes and processes and things like AI and technology that have moved on inevitably. But that's another big pool of talent that sat there in the UK untapped. And again, I don't believe that businesses are doing enough to bring women back into the workplace that want to come back after they've had children and a family. So again, it's education around, look, it's doable. We're going to help. We're going to support you. Let's organise what that role is going to look like. Let's understand what your goals and aspirations are for your career now, which will be version 2, because who you are before having children is very different to afterwards. And also your workload outside of the office has multiplied. So I left the office last night at 5, and I was driving to singing a rugby and another rugby until about 8, 9 at night. And then I came home and helped with a physics test or something. I have to learn the equation about how to work out energy of power and time. And that was doing that last night at like 9 o'clock, going, right, let me just get my head around how do we calculate the cost per kilowatt, and all this sort of thing. So it was like, oh God. But and that's different. So when you come back after having a family, suddenly you don't come out and your evenings are your own. You've then got your children. So again, it's how to ease women back into the workplace now with the new life that they have and the new responsibilities that they have, but also enabling them to achieve their goals for their careers and fulfilling their potential and getting that dopamine hit. You know what I mean by that, don't you, Harriet? That hit you get after an amazing day or an amazing meeting, or you close a great deal, or you run a brilliant program and you get glowing feedback, or, you get somebody promoted. Dopamine hit is like no other, and you just don't get it as a mum. You do get dopamine hits. Like if I watch my daughter sing on stage, I'm like, woo, I get that hit. But my God, the hit you get in work. And I think so many women who really enjoyed sales as a career before they had kids that then struggled to come back, that is a shame. That is a crying shame. It shouldn't happen. So again, that's going to be a big initiative for me moving forward, is how we change that, how we educate businesses on how to integrate them back in.
And it is education with businesses, because I think if you'd asked me when I was in the thick of selling, being the top of my game, that at that point, and you said to me, we've got someone joining, they're coming back part-time, I'd be like, no way, it will not work, because the amount of work that you put in to build a pipeline, and it's not just about working on a Tuesday and a Wednesday to make your calls, and then you come back again next Tuesday, Wednesday, as an example. And so I think the education needs to be there, absolutely. But I think it's also having the right sales, the type of product or service that you're selling. Because I know I've coached people that are in that part-time role and I'll specifically speak for tech sales, that consultative approach, that repetitive next level, next thing, next meeting, next opportunity would be very difficult in 2 days. I don't believe you'd ever see the same success as somebody that was working in a different role that was like either maybe a quicker sale or almost like, and I probably should caveat that with the lead development stuff we're doing. I want people returning from maternity leave to come and work for me. Like that is in that role, because I believe it will suit somebody that knows what they're doing, that needs a bit of a sharpen up, needs a bit of a refresh, but can work around school hours, because lead development is not selling. It's not getting them through to that sales bit, because we know the journey from having a meeting to doing a demo to proposal, bringing in a specialist, closing it, is not necessarily always conducive to just a couple of days. So I think education is important, but then would you agree that the type of thing you're selling has an impact as to whether that...
Well, it's an interesting one. I think it's the way that it's structured. So for me, it would be, so if we think about, if I take Sarah Skelton, who's the MD of Flurry, for example, she works 3 days a week. But she doesn't work 3 days a week, because she's always on. But she's on her terms on those 2 days. So obviously she's setting up a business and she's growing it. So she works all the time. Like Skelly's on it like Saturday morning, Sunday night, you name it. She's always on, but she's a very different sort of animal, is Skelly. And she was like that, by the way, in a sales role in a previous position. That's not just because she's setting this business up. But when I've worked part-time in a sales role, and I did that as the sales manager of the apprenticeship team, I've done it carrying targets across my time as a mum. It's about organisation, management and support. So, for example, your clients know that you are going to be absolutely available 4 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever it may be, to go and see them and be there in the office or wherever they need you to be. On the day when you're not working, they've got to divert. So there's somebody else that would pick up that on the team who support that mum who's not able to be there that day. And that's the thing. So you'd never have it where you'd say to a client, by the way, Thursday, Friday, I'm not working, so you can't contact me. If you've got a problem with the system or something's broken or you've got a query, guess what? You're going to have to wait till Monday. That wouldn't be the case. What you have to have, and this is what I mean about educating businesses and also reassuring women, that there is a support network behind. And actually, look, you might be one of these people where when you're not working on that day, you're off the grid. But most driven women that I know, especially with today's technology of having a phone on you with links to Teams, emails, WhatsApp, and all the communications that you have across your business, to see something come in and to just drop a quick reply with some, can you just get onto this, or can you just send them this email, or could you just give them a quick call? Again, that's at your fingertips. So you don't lose control like you used to back in the old days when you didn't have that access. But for me, it's around the support system that business can put into place to ensure that female, when she's gone off the grid. By the way, this can also be about guys and men that want to be with their kids. And again, I've seen this before where a guy might work 4 days a week because 1 day a week he wants to be off with his kids and do school run and, be with his toddler who's about to start school, and it's, the final term before they do, and they want to spend some time with them. That's great. But for me, it's having that support system in the background so that the client experience isn't jeopardized, the client journey isn't interrupted, but the females and the parents can actually do a hybrid. So that for me would be the big initiative.
Have you heard of the 5-Hour Club?
No.
I'm going to give them a little plug. So I'll let you know how I found them because it was very impressive. The founder, I believe co-founder, is a girl called Amy, I believe. I'll pop the links in the show notes anyway for anyone that wants to check it out. And I came across her because she'd written this post basically on saying, I don't belong on LinkedIn. And she was a mum returning to work. She struggled to get back into the industry and the role that she was in previously. And when coming back with children, part-time wasn't available. It was condensed work. It wasn't really giving her what she wanted, and she couldn't really give as much as she needed or as she could because people were limiting her because she was a return to work and could only work between the hours of, drop off and pick up. So let's say 9 till 3. So I think it actually works 9 till 2 because it's 5 hours. But regardless, basically what she then did was she wrote this big post about, I'm not there, et cetera, I'm returning to work. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm having to kind of navigate. And this is my opinion of it. I think at the time she had a handful of connections, as in, I would say 500, maybe 1,000 or under. This post, I should probably get the stats on it. This post went viral, as in 5 million people saw it. And within that space, she went up by 50,000 followers. The couple of hours of me looking at this post and forwarding it to a friend who I felt was in the similar situation. And then the next post was, well, that wasn't what I expected for my first post on LinkedIn back from work. And she's basically created this business called the 5-Hour Club.
That
post jobs.
Cool.
For, if you're a business and you want to offer jobs which will suit a mum returning to work or a dad returning to work or, navigating a part-time role or reduced hours, it basically is all about that. And so because of that one post, she's gone, all across so many different industries. So many people now have heard her. I believe she might have gone on a morning show somewhere. But I'll pop the link in because they then reached out to me when we were advertising and said, would it suit? And I was like, 100% our lead development role would suit because it doesn't have the follow-up that's required in the average sales role. And I think the education bit you mentioned, and I think it's all about having a business that can structure and can have enough people that have that ability or a role share or something, because it won't suit every business and it won't suit every person, but it's about offering it. And also knowing I read an article about bringing in an older workforce. And as soon as I say older, I think, 80, but then, what it's saying is, 60s, it's people that still want to work, but are almost dismissed because why would you want to change jobs now at that age? How long are we going to have you for? And we make these assumptions, the same thing we do for women and people returning to work, that, this won't be a priority for you. And therefore, do I really want you here? And I found that such an eye-opening conversation because since then, I've had conversations with female leaders that I've worked with across the industry, across Australia, across the UK, that are going into their 50s and they are feeling the pressure, the push, the judgment, they're going into a whole other challenge. So as women, we're coming into the industry and we're navigating that. Then we're like, right, we've nailed it. Let's go. And then as you are promoted or maybe not promoted, you're quite happy in whatever role it is you're in, you're now being treated differently and judged differently based on experiences that have been shared with me. that's now navigating. So I think that's, it's also from that grassroots, that firm, but then that next level. I would love to have someone who's 50, who's been in the industry, who wants to come in and work with us, because imagine the experience and the knowledge and
absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a really, really key pool of candidates as well, and there's just so much stigma attached to not just age, but I think age is a certain agenda point as well. And, I remember the sort of jokes we had a few salespeople in my last place that were in their 50s and late 40s, and there'd be a lot of jokes if they were in a bad mood about the menopause and, oh, right, going through the change, and that's why she's been moody today, or that's why she's kicked off about that. And you just don't hear that sort of narrative about men. You just don't hear it. And it's like, there's always whatever level of life cycle a female is at, whether it's, the point where they might not take her on in case she has kids because she's 32 and she's not got kids yet. So, hey, she's a risk. Or, hey, she's just had kids. So that's going to mean that she's going to want to leave early and she's not going to be here on school holidays. And if the kid's ill, she's not going to come in. Or it's when they start to get towards the menopause. It is just this constant narrative, and it's a challenge. And I feel like without realizing it, as females, we've been fighting it the whole of our careers, and fighting that stereotype and having to be that extra bit. I remember training a course once to a very male audience who were a big tech company, and I was 8.5 months pregnant. So I was out here and I had a sort of suit on that was sort of pulled across my tummy, and, maternity trousers on that I tried to get to look as smart as possible. And, but I was still feeling good and was able to run a sit-hop training program, if I don't say so myself. But I remember when I walked in and the male audience was like, they looked at me and then they looked at my tummy and they were like, oh my God, what's this? Why have we got this like waddling pregnant woman trying to train us on the skills of selling? As it went, it was a brilliant program, but I had to go in and be really hard and almost overcompensate for being a pregnant woman in the training room, and actually stop them with quite a sort of, not aggressive opening sort of intro, but it was certainly more masculine than I would have normally done, to get them to respect me and to actually buy into me as a salesperson and a professional and not a mum to be. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think it's a topic then that I think as more people become aware of it, because we mentioned just before we got on the podcast about about women coming into the industry, but also then about what are our leaders doing and what's the board doing, and how are we leading by example and showing that coming through. And I think there's still so much work to do across the industry, across every country, across, regardless of whether it's in sales or something else. I think there's always going to be a story there. And it's about, I think for me, like one of the things that I think is really important of that generation, and also women coming through, is being that support as a female, because it can often be portrayed that, I haven't had kids and I'm just going to keep going and good luck to you. Yeah. But actually, it's not about that. It's about then empowering and paving the way for the next generation and for the people that want to come through as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Now, we get asked questions on the podcast, and this is always my favorite, because I'm like, oh, this is what people want to ask us and this is what people want to hear about. And I'm hoping the topics we put out are always that. But there's a couple of questions that I thought I'd pull up, because I thought this is super relevant to your experience and I guess really our conversation today. And the question is it better to focus on empowering individual reps or building a cohesive team culture for long-term success? So empower individual or build a cohesive team. What do you think is more important for building long-term success?
Well, the diplomatic answer would to go a bit of both. Building for me, it's building a cohesive team. I mean, it's imperative. I think to have one vision, one goal as a team is really, really important. What do we want to achieve? What does good look like for our business? Our business is part of all of you. We are a family. We are a team. We are one. What do we want to achieve, and how are we going to get there, and how are we going to support and enable each other? And we owe each other to do this, because the success of our business is impacting my family, your life, your goals. So let's help each other to achieve that for all of our individual goals and individual whys. But also, off the grid, I would empower individuals as well. So I find it's important imperative actually to have regular one-to-ones and to understand your team members, understand what's happening in their lives, what their life structure looks like, what their personal goals are, what their responsibilities are outside of work, what they are also involved with outside of the office, and understanding how to then empower them based on their strengths and their aspirations and maybe some of their, areas of development. And, if I think about academies that I bring in, say I bring in sort of 8 people at a time, they're all very different. So they're one, so we've got to collaborate and we've got to be, we've all got to go, come on, we're the great academy, we're going to go in, we're going to smash it, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to get you all promoted. But actually each individual in that room has got their own why. So to empower an individual is massively important. And actually, don't forget that your high achievers need to be coached and managed differently to the ones that maybe need to have some development support, maybe performance isn't great. Some people might be sort of that middle tier that are easy to forget about because they're just plodding on, and you've got loads of time stealers at the top of the bottom, and it's down a middle tier that are, quietly just getting on with it in the corner. But what coaching and support are you giving them? So it's a bit of both, to be honest. But I think everybody needs to have that common goal as a team. And that's why it's really important to do your socials and your launches and your kickoffs and, make sure that you're doing your team meetings every single week and everyone's sharing their thoughts and ideas and what they're doing for the week ahead, and then reviewing that, how they all got on. And we've got our teams, a lot of our communication internally is done through Teams, and we've got these team chats. And we have sales ones and team ones, and they're all sort of broken down into chats, but there's a lot of support on there, and they all put their meetings that they've made on there as well and who they're with, and everyone celebrates it. And that's really important to make sure everybody is understanding what's happening across the team. Really important.
Awesome. Yeah. And I would fully agree with that in terms of that, holistic view, because we're going to go, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Is that right?
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, that's I think like the tortoise and the hare, scenario. But I think I would definitely agree with that. And also ensuring those one-on-ones, because often one-on-one doesn't happen until you think there's a problem. And, if you've got that coming through, and I think you've just said there, about that Teams chat and celebration, we're growing that LDR team. But I was like, actually, we've just literally just this afternoon, we created an LDR chat. So we could, put some resources in and some support as the team starts to grow. But I'm going to add that in there. It's a good reminder. I do it for a lot of my clients, but then it's about bringing it back in. And that flows really nicely just into the last question, which is, with limited budgets, what sales enablement tools or strategies should organizations prioritize?
With limited budget tools, well, look, there's a lot of fancy LMS systems out there, because I get probably about 10 emails a day with people trying to sell them to me. And there are some brilliant tools. I mean, we've not touched on AI today, but AI tools are blowing my mind at the moment in terms of what they're able to do to support in training and development across businesses. But if you are low on budget, then for me, it's giving time, making sure that you are allocating time to developing your people. And sometimes that can be challenging, especially if you're in a small business where there aren't enough hours in the day, you've got not enough heads to help you with the demand of your workflow, and you've got clients that are demanding, and it can be really challenging to go, do you know what, we're going to down tools for the next 90 minutes and we're going to do a training session on, I don't know, prospecting. That can be challenging when you're a small business, because to have everybody off the phones and everybody off the sales floor in a session like that, it's really hard to do. But time is the most precious commodity when it comes to training, especially when you're a manager. In terms of sort of tools to support, I think I've trained businesses that have got nothing. They've got barely any CRM. They've got, spreadsheets coming out their ears rather than any processes and sort of fancy data. And I don't think you need to spend a lot of money necessarily to get a good reward for development. But having, I think that one of the key shifts that I've seen over the years is this technology when it comes to training. And one of the things that I really like about some of the digital stuff that you can do these days with some pre-course learning. So what happens now when we train out programs is that we'll give the delegate some pre-course learning to do, so they can upskill on some of the methodologies and themes that's going to be trained in that session. And it's fantastic because they come into the session already knowing a little bit. So actually, rather than wasting time explaining that methodology to them and the sort of fundamentals of it, they come in already with that knowledge. So the session is then spent actually applying it and getting conversations. Again, digital tools like that are really great if you do have the budget, because to give some pre-course learning or some LMS courses that people can download and look at in their own time around their busy schedules and their targets and, you know, kind of peaks and troughs of their week. That's also really, really valuable. So my academy have all got a learner management system that they can access with digital modules. So, for example, if on a Friday afternoon it's quietened off and from 3 o'clock they could do a couple of modules and they've got their headphones on and they're off the phones, but they're doing some key learning, that's brilliant. So again, if you can and you have got the luxury of some budget to invest in a good LMS, that you can put some good courses on there too.
Yeah, awesome. Any final comments around what you want to see more of, who you want to be connecting with you, anything to wrap up with?
Who do I want to connect to me? Everyone. So look, you know, anyone who is looking to upskill or to unleash the potential of their sales teams, their client services teams, their account management teams, their management teams, their leadership teams, we are here. Anybody that's looking to upskill their technical teams, IT teams, software developers, testers, cybersecurity teams, we are here. Anybody who wants to upskill their marketing, we are here. Anybody that's wanting to onboard early careers talent, we are here. We've got it all. We're a one-stop shop, right? We've got it all. So anyone that wants any support with driving their business forward across any sorts of training or hiring, you know where I am. Melissa Hull, LinkedIn. Hit me up.
Thank you, Liz. I'll pop the link for people to find you and connect you in the show notes. So thank you for being a guest on the Sell Like You podcast, and happy selling.
Thanks, Harriet. I've really enjoyed it. Take care.